Okay, so let's keep going. And next, we're going to talk about debt. We're going to talk about credit cards, loans, and then student loans. So, as I go through this again, if you have questions, please ask them, or we can also save questions till after the end of the presentation. But when it comes to credit card debt and loans, they can be very expensive and they can be very distracting from your ability to be able to achieve your goals because you're putting money towards paying off debt. And when you think about debt, it's never the balance that keeps you stuck. It's the interest and how the interest compounds that keeps people in debt and makes it difficult to get out of it. So think about your debt as a hole in the ground. There's this hole you need to fill up, and that hole is debt. And every time you make a minimum payment, you pick up a tablespoon of sand and you put it into the into the hole, right? So you're trying to fill the hole back by making your debt payments. But because of interest, if you have high interest debt, every time you make that tablespoon of debt of sand, which is debt repayment into your hole, the interest compounds and is essentially an automatic shovel that picks up a massive chunk of sand from inside of your hole and puts it out. So for every tablespoon you put in of a minimum payment, there's an automatic compounding interest debt shovel that's digging five times as much out of the hole. So this is why people say, I keep making all these payments on my debt, but I can't seem to make any progress. It's because of compounding interest. So when it comes to debt, if you are gainfully employed right now, I want you to decide that you are done with debt once and for all. And this can be very uncomfortable for people who are used to just constantly spending on their credit cards. But this is the decision that you have to make in order to be able to take control of your debt, right? So we're going to stop spending on credit. Next, you need to create a debt repayment plan. And there is a strategy to doing this. So first of all, you're going to list out everything you owe. Your mortgage, your credit cards, your student loans, your car notes. Create a list of them in a spreadsheet on a piece of paper. And then you're going to reshuffle them by either the highest interest rate, so the debt that's costing you the most money, which has the highest interest rate associated to it, or the debt that has the smallest balance, right, which is the debt that you can easily pay off. And what you're going to do is pick that number one debt on your list, right? And pay more than the minimum. So every dollar more than the minimum required payments that you make is you putting more than a tablespoon of sand into your hole. So you want to get to the point where you are able to counter and even put in more sand into your hole than that automatic shovel is able to dig out in interest, if that makes sense. I hope this example is not confusing you, but every time you pay more than the minimum payment due on a credit card, you're putting more money towards your principal balance, which means that the next time that debt compounds, the next week, the next month, the next day, depending on your terms with your lender, the next time that debt compounds, it's compounding on a smaller principal balance because you have made more than the minimum payment. That's how it works. Credit card companies, loan companies want you to make minimum payments. This is how they make money. They make money on compounding interest. So whenever they tell you all you have to pay is $10, $20, you can take out $100,000 loan and all you have to pay every month is $200. It is really not to your benefit. It is for their benefit because they're going to charge you the legally allowable highest amount of interest they can get away with to make as much money off of you as their product as possible. If you have a bunch of different debts and they're overwhelming you and just super confusing, you can consider consolidating your debt into one payment. However, I will caution against consolidation because it doesn't pay off your debt. It just shifts your debt into one convenient payment. And a lot of times, even though the consolidation seems like you're getting a lower rate, the fees to consolidate that debt actually are not saving you any money on what you were paying when those debts were separated. And a lot of times when you get a consolidation offer in the mail, you want to remember that again, the credit card company, the loan company has assessed you. They have departments that they spend millions and millions of dollars every year on to determine your behavior when it comes to money. So they know that, okay, if Bola has $10,000 in debt and she's paying 25% interest, I can send her a debt consolidation offer for 5% interest over the next 12 months. And then after 12 months, her interest becomes 30%. The chances based on their research, their algorithms, the chances that I'm going to pay off that debt in full within 10 months are probably like, within 12 months are probably like 2%. So not only will I not be able to pay it off, at the end of those 12 months, I'll end up paying them 30% versus the 25% I was paying previously. So bottom line is that when it comes to consolidation, you want to be very, very careful. And then finally, if you have any debt that is in collections, pick up your phone, call your debt collector, and negotiate a payment plan. Ask for help, especially right now, as people are struggling, for the last couple of years through the pandemic, now into a potential recession. There's people who are not able to keep up with bills. There's people who have lost incomes. Pick up your phone and call your service providers, call your creditors, and just say that you need help. If you don't ask, they don't know. And once you're able to communicate the fact that you need help, a lot of them have plans. They will negotiate plans with you. They will delay making negative remarks to the credit bureau. So it's definitely important that you communicate. When it comes to student loans, so I talk about that statistic that women carry 2/3 of that $1.3 trillion student loan debt burden. Um, we need to pay attention to our loans. I think a lot of people don't really pay too much attention to their loans because sometimes the interest is lower than the average debt that you might have. People tell you that student loans are good because it's what helps you get the job and you're working your career so you can spend your whole career paying off your student loans. But you can pay off your student loans and you can save your money, save yourself that money on interest, and then put that money towards accelerating your other financial goals. So first things first, you want to be aware of all of your student loans. I know people who have signed student loans every semester for every year they're in college, and they have 9, 10, 11 different loans, and they forgot where they had the loans, and they were not making payments and got reports on their credit. So be aware of all your loans. The easiest way to do this is to pull a copy of your credit report. You then want to determine what are your loan payments and then build them into your budget, right? Build them into one of your budget categories. Depending on the type of loan that you have, you may want to consider consolidating your loan to a lower rate, especially if they're private loans. However, when you consolidate federal loans into private loans, you may lose that option of deferred loan payments and income-based payment plans. But if you're gainfully employed right now and you have the ability to pay off your debt faster, then it might make sense for you to consolidate into a lower interest private loan. Don't skip loan payments and don't default. If you feel like you're unable to make a loan payment, pick up your phone and call your loan provider. And then again, similar to the strategy I discussed earlier about prioritizing your debts, prioritize your student loans by interest rate and then focus on paying more than the minimum on your top priority student loan. During times of uncertainty, when it comes to debt, it is okay to make minimum payments on your debt if you have no emergency savings in place. So make those minimum payments, get some emergency savings in place, and then come back and start making more than the minimum payments. You want to have emergency savings in place so that you don't have to leverage debt that's being compounded on high interest when an emergency comes up. You can also ramp back up on accelerating your debt repayment plans once you have that emergency savings in place. And then, as I keep saying, if you're unable to make your payments, be sure to communicate with your lenders and service providers. Do not assume that they know your situation. So that's the debt section. So we've talked about budgeting, having emergency savings in place, and having a plan to pay off debt. So I just want to check in to make sure that you guys are still with me and you are enjoying this presentation so far.